Hey friends, Peter Temes here, founder and president of the Institute for Innovation in Large Organizations. I want to talk just for a brief moment about open innovation. Open innovation is the idea that we can do the kind of crowdsourcing, external sourcing, problem solving, where we as a firm can define a problem and we can get the whole world to contribute to it. NASA has been a great pioneer in open innovation, taking what they would, in candid moments, and we've worked with NASA for many years, call a broken procurement system. The folks at NASA say, well, the folks at NASA, when they're off the clock and being super candid, will say, our big problem with procurement is that everything goes through Congress, which is why anything we put into low Earth orbit has parts sourced in 48 states, right? So you have a startup like SpaceX coming in on contract to NASA, existing because NASA really wants them to exist. It costs them much less to do most of the procurement that they do because they go out and they don't have that cumbersome process. So NASA says, all right, our procurement is broken. How can we procure so we can operate without procurement? And the answer is contests. They began with this very beautiful space glove where they said, okay, look, here's a challenge for the whole world. Our spacesuit needs a new glove. It's got to meet these demanding specifications. Go out, anyone in the world, and try to make a glove that meets those specs. Come back with it. We'll give you a prize. We'll give you a meaningful amount of money, but from a different bucket than you'd get if we had to procure through Congress, and inevitably at a much lower cost. And interestingly, the guy who created that glove was someone with a master's degree in material science, right? Who is not a NASA glove designer, but his family were 3 generations of Maine traditional glove makers. That culture of hunting up in the frigid north, they really knew how to make gloves. This guy had a master's level scientific understanding of what the key issues were. He came up with a beautiful glove. NASA put it under a big glass bucket and toured around with it. And interestingly, the glove made one of those gestures like from the Sistine Chapel, the story of humanity, not only the technical challenge of putting that space glove on. I think that's a great story. It happens to be true, but it's only part of what really happens with that. Interesting to me that that fellow was a master's degree level scientist. Our friend Alf Bingham, who was foundational coming out of Eli Lilly as one of their heads of R&D, helped to create InnoCentive, a terrific external open innovation platform through which you have hundreds of thousands of people getting to see nicely refined challenges of all kinds that companies pay to put on that platform. A platform that Alf spent 2 years on a plane building. He was curating to make sure that folks who really had problem-solving chops, meaning grad students, faculty at universities all over the world, independent scientists, he had to do a lot of priming of the pump to let them know that there was a very interesting game to be played on the InnoCentive website. Alf talks about this idea of optimal distance. Alf reminds us that the people who tend to have the best solutions, when you have 50,000 people throwing a solution in and they're working hard at it, the ones that win are usually not PhD level folks in the same discipline, but they're also usually not, the cafeteria lady. Sometimes they are, but usually it's someone who actually has a fair amount of training, not hyper expert in a narrow area, but a fairly broad set of perspectives with enough knowledge to really understand the complex technical limitations that you need to engineer around. So it's optimal distance. We don't want someone in our club, because our club has failed to solve this problem, trying it again. We want someone who could be in our club because they have the chops, but they're not. They're doing something different. They're bringing their knowledge from astronomy. They're bringing their knowledge from baseball statistics. They're bringing their knowledge from social organizing to this technical challenge. But boy, they're so good at these other things. And they have the background to really understand some of the hidden challenges. That helps drive open innovation. Optimal distance. Perhaps even more important is the narrowness of how you define the challenge. Challenge definition is the key to open innovation. Here's the problem. You say, wow, we've often had, think of a pyramid, very few people are own experts in our organization. So that's the top of the pyramid. It's the breadth of people involved trying to solve the base of the pyramid. How many problems? All of them. Or a few people are trying to solve more or less all the problems we have internally. So your pyramid has a shape like this. The mistake you can make, and forgive me, I'm not going to show you the slide. This is the interpretive dance version of the slide. The mistake a lot of firms make when they start doing open innovation is they turn the pyramid into a block. They say, now let's get everybody in the whole world trying to solve all our problems. And they shout to the world, hey, we have all these problems. Pitch in a plan for the future of banking, right? Bank of Montreal did this to high school students 15 years ago. And they get a flood of entries that they can't process because each one is quirky. They need to get some of their executive folks to look at them and think about them, and all the biases and filters that those folks bring in come to bear, and they sift out the good, and they often embrace the overly familiar. That's what happens when you take that pyramid, very few people solving a problem, but they're not solving one, they're solving all of them, and you make it into a big block. Better if you take the pyramid and you just flip it. So now you're brought on top. The whole world is trying to solve the problem, but you've defined a nice, narrow little problem down here. That's when open innovation works. That's when Cemex from Mexico, very large concrete cement making company, construction management, hospitality management, they have sites in Beijing. They used to have the usual fun innovation day contest. Hey, bring us all your great ideas. Tell us about the future of cement. And you get this stuff that you almost can't process. And then they got the religion, right? They went from this to this to this now. That's when it looks good. And they began doing things like saying, hey, here's our contest. And we're pushing this out to all our employees in the Beijing area and their families and our friends and the public and our suppliers. And we're saying, we have a site here in the Central Business District. We have a staging area here. We need to get 10 trucks full of rapidly drying concrete from here to here in the quickest possible way. What's the best route? And if you give us the best route, $5,000 to you, and you get free pizza. So what happens? 200, 300 people think they might know a better way. They jump on their cars and they start driving. And 90% of them go home cursing because traffic is so bad. But a few of them find a better route. Then they put it in. If you think about this scientifically, and this is really how open innovation works, the value of the solution that emerges is a function of how many people are putting in their attempts, right? They're creating essentially the value set of the inputs, and the N, the number of people who are playing, really determines the quality of the best few answers. It's beautiful in a social engineering way that you can get the value of the N of a couple of hundred people who try and fail and go away, but it's their participation, because you can't predict in advance where the value sits, that gets those 3, 4, 5 who really come up with great answers to give you such high quality answers. That's all you have to review. That's what you can reward. That is one of the great approaches to open innovation that you need to think about. You need to think about that pyramid. More on open innovation to come. We're going to do another one of these little videos and talk about passive open innovation, data-driven open innovation, including a great story about Uber. See you later.